In this lesson, I'm going to play the role of coach rather than as race organizer. And as coach, I'm going to want to import my athletes into the system so that I can track them at various events. I also may be putting together some informal time trials alike where I want to be able to select my athletes easily and place them in a race. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Setup. And much like we did with the race information, we're going to go to Import Race Package. Now, just to review, the race package is a separate file, and we're going to import our athletes into this file and then from this file into the database. Now, one of the things that I'm going to want to check is that the race package is empty, and it is in fact empty of races. We can see there are no races here. And now we'll go over to the athletes, and we can see there are no athletes as well. If there were races or athletes, I'd most likely want to delete them all so I could have a clean import of my athletes. Now, the athletes have been arranged in a spreadsheet, and you can see on this spreadsheet the usual name and address, date of birth, and things that you'd recognize, but a couple of extra values that you might be of interest. One is the person of interest value, and I've set them all to 5. As we will see when we get back to the athlete window, I can do a search based on the person of interest values, and this will allow me to tag all my team members so I can easily find them. I've had a very limited example here of only loading 4 people. You might be loading 100 people, in which case you might want to have different person of interest values for different levels of ability within your group. The other thing I want to show you is that we have an athlete, a coach, and a parent column. So if you're managing a club, you can differentiate between, obviously, athletes, coaches, and parents. And we do have an emailing capability from within the athlete window, so you can email just to parents or just to coaches or just to athletes. So we have this file set up, and so what we're going to do is we're going to import the external file. You get a brief message that gives you the format, but it's easier probably to go to that spreadsheet. I'm going to use our test import file that comes with the software. I'm going to pick the first tab, and you can see on the left these are the columns within the spreadsheet, and you can see on the right these are the fields within the database, and I've arranged the spreadsheet so that it matches the database fields, so we don't have to do any rearranging or remapping of the data. And we'll import the data. And we see that we have 4 athletes that were imported, and these are the 4 that we saw on the spreadsheet. And then we can go back to the main race package window. So now I have the athletes in the package, so now I want to move them from the package into the database. I could at this point also email the package to other devices if I wanted to have other people import these same athletes, although I may in fact want to update the athlete information and then ship them out, much like I did with the race information. So I'm going to import the package. It tells me I have 4 athletes that were imported, and so now I will leave the package window, and these athletes should be in the system, so I can exit. I can go to the athletes window, and you can see I have many other athletes already in there, but because I have tagged them with a person of interest value of 5, I can find by POI. You can see right now it says show all athletes. Finding by POI quickly allows me to get to the 4 people that I just input. And the 4 people that I just input, you can see, are also in bold. That means they're athletes. You can see athletes has a Y, and coach and parent has an N. If we go back to show all athletes, what you'll also see if you page down, you'll see some people are in purple. That means they're coaches, and others are in brown. That means they are parents. So you can easily differentiate between them. We also have an asterisk like we did on the racers if they're missing an email, so you can tell if there's an email, and an exclamation point if there's a comment filled in if you want to see what that comment is. So we'll go back to our find by POI. If I want, I can import a picture of the athlete by clicking on the picture, right-clicking, and then say Insert Picture. I can select a picture and return to the athlete. And then I have the picture. Now, when you're doing exports of athletes, when you send an athlete via a race package, the pictures will not be included because the pictures are too large and would make the attachment too large to be emailed. So you can export pictures out if you want. They are put into a picture subdirectory within the system, and then you can attach them to email, send them to other people who have your athlete, and they can then select that picture and put it in themselves. But this will not be transported as part of the normal athlete transfer. You can now, at this point, if you want, you can update some of the information about your athletes. We have some user-defined fields which you can set up if you want to track information. If you are putting your skiers in various groups, you can potentially put them here. One of the things that you have the option of doing is when you select your athletes, which we'll be doing in a moment for a race, you can elect the selection to include the age group, the bib, or the person of interest. And the problem with including age group is if you're using the system for over a number of years, the age group will change, obviously. The person will grow a year older, so very often it's a good idea to toggle on this and set the age group to no. A bib would typically also be no, unless you're doing a regular series of races where the athletes are keeping the same bib from race to race. Person of interest, you probably do want to leave that on, so now when I select an athlete, the person of interest will come down with that athlete. So I have 4 athletes with person of interest number 5. I also have some athletes as well, which we'll, for this example, consider part of perhaps the second string of the team that are under person of interest value 1. So now I have my athletes set up, and there's a number of situations that I may want to be able to take advantage of these person of interest values. So let's look at a couple of them. One would be if I'm going to a race where I am given a start list. It's just a paper start list. I have 100 racers, and my athletes are in the race, but I don't want to have to type in all 100 racers, but I do want to be able to keep splits. So what I can do is I can go to Select, Manage Races, and I can create a new race, and I will just call this race my example, and I will select that. So now I have a race, and I can go to Setup, and what I can do, there are no racers for this, but what I can do is I can go to Add Athletes to Race. So what I can do is go to Add Athletes to Race. I'm looking at all athletes, but what I want to do is I want to add my athletes to this race to start with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first find my second string, which is people of interest number 1. I'm going to first say select or unselect all athletes. I'm going to select them all. So you can see they've all turned green. I'm going to add the selected to the race. So all of them are now entered in that race. I'm then going to go to, by toggling up to 5, I'm going to search for my 4 that I just imported. I'm going to select them and add them to the race. And now if I exit out of this, I'll return to my race, and right now what I have is I have all my racers who are entered in the race, and I can then look at the start list, and what I can do is I can go into Assign Bibs, and I can look up each person, and I can put bibs from the start list. So let's say this person's 12, this one's 24, this one's 67, this one's 26, this one's 3, 4, 9, 15, and 61. Okay, so now what I have is I have the bibs assigned to the people who are on the start list, my athletes that are on the start list. So now I have all my racers set up with their bibs. The issue is that I need to create the slots for all the rest of the racers, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create dummy entries, and I don't mind that I may have a few more than are actually in the race. I said there's 100 people in the race. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add 100 dummy entries, and these will represent all of the other racers in the race. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to then add the assigned bibs, the bibs that I've already used, to a skip list. And this skip list can be used just as I'm using it here now. It also can be used when you're setting up races. If you're a race organizer using permanent bibs and you actually have a few bibs missing in your bib set, you can put them here and they won't be assigned. So now what I can do is I can assign bibs, but what it'll do is it will assign bibs and skip the bibs that are in the skip list, so it won't reassign the bibs that I just did, and it will not create ghosts. If I was missing a bib, I might actually want to create a ghost for the missing bibs, but I'm going to assign bibs. And what we'll see is we now have bibs, and you can see that there are some missing bibs here, and if we go back out to race registration and we sort by bib, what we'll see is that we have our racers now inserted with their full names on the start list. Now, assuming that I know exactly what the start time is and the interval, I can now go set the start times. And what I'll say in this case, instead of using a stopwatch-based time, just to mix it up a little bit, what I'm going to say is this is starting at 1 o'clock, so we're going to do it with 24-hour time. And we'll say that the racers are starting every 30 seconds. And then what I can do is I can assign start times. And assuming that I got my information entered correctly in terms of when the start times and the bibs, what we should find is our own racers should be assigned the same start time as they have on the start list. So now I have the start list, and if I want, what I can do is I can go into the start list. I can fill in a few other key people if I want, but what I won't be able to do is when I'm taking splits, I'll know what numbers ahead, I won't know what their name is, but if I have the paper list there with me, I can quickly look at the paper list. So now at this point, I can exit out, and if we wanted to. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to try to simulate doing splits. We've done splits in a previous example, but we'll just show how this would work here. So I'm going to set the watch to the current time, and we're going to move it back to let's make it about 26 minutes in. Alright, so the start times, remember these people are starting every 30 seconds. We want to start the clock. Actually, let's make it a little bit later. Alright, so then we'll exit out of this. We'll go into splits. You'll see we get the normal load the array. This time we have 100 numbers going in, and you can see for most of them we just have ZZ late as the name. And then you can record splits just like you would any other race. The only drawback is that you don't have the names of all of the racers, although you do have their bibs. And you can always look up their bibs on your paper start list. So I'm just going to show you an example of tracking a skier, William, and then we'll go to the tracking clock. And you can see that we get William's split as usual, and we can see that he's 6 minutes ahead of his teammate Liz Adams, who's bib 12. And you can see that bib 14 is the leader, but you don't have their name. As I say, you'll have to look on the paper start list, although you can hand enter them on the iPad. And the iPhone and the iPad both can handle all of the same things that I've just done here under Windows. And so this completes the demonstration of how you would use a paper start list and be able to track splits.